In this video, I'm going to talk about the differences between DSOs and the traditional private practice. You might be hearing about the rise of DSOs, or dental service organizations. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the differences between DSOs and the traditional private practice. And I'm going to go through some positive and negative about each of them, and then go over how you might be exposed to DSOs in dental school. So DSOs, also known as dental service organizations, like I said before, are pretty much like the corporate dental practice that are coming into power these days, and you might be seeing them in different parts of the country. A lot of the times they come up in the more rural areas first, but they are entering large metro cities now. So some of these companies, Heartland, Aspen, Pacific Dental, Dental 365, the Smilist, there's so many. And the reason why these are coming out today is because they're kind of following the path of medicine. You might see these ginormous hospitals that are opening up different sectors where urgent cares are coming out. So you have Northwell, you have Pro Health, depending on where you live. So they're kind of following the same path as these larger hospital chains. Now, let's go over some advantages of DSOs, especially as a new student after dental school. So one advantage is that you get paid pretty well. You can get paid at the top of the range in terms of salary after exiting dental school and going into the workforce. So that's a huge positive. You know, you have to pay off some student loans. Why not work at an office where you can actually get the most amount of money for what you're doing? Another advantage of DSOs is that you don't have to focus on the business aspect. Working at a DSO, you solely focus on dentistry, which is ultimately why a lot of us went into dentistry in the first place. Like, we don't want to deal with the finances and the business and scheduling patients. What we want to do is we want patients scheduled for us, have them in the chair, work on them, do what we were trained to do, which is ultimately see patients, and then have them leave. So a lot of people find that as an advantage. Another advantage of a DSO, especially at a school, is that you are given so many patients, that you're working on the patients so quickly and so efficiently that you can gain hand skills actually really quickly in there. Better than if you were working at a private practice and you didn't have as much of a flow of patients coming in and out of the doors, where you're sitting around a lot of the days. So if you're an ambitious student, you want to try to get, hand skills, really, you want to get your hand skills honed in early on, DSOs are great. Let's talk about the disadvantages. One disadvantage is that you can't really make many decisions about what you want to see in the office, whether you want more digital dentistry, whether you like certain materials that you like to use. A lot of the times that is something that you can't control. Whereas if you had a private practice, you could say, oh, I went to the Greater New York dental meeting, or I went to the dental meeting in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I really like this new material. I think it sets much quicker. I think it's much more durable, less elastic, whatever it may be. And you don't have the authority to buy that material working at a DSO. You have to run it through management, and then they have to make that decision. In addition, I told you a positive was seeing a lot of patients. That's also a negative. You are working on a schedule, and they are looking at a return on their investment, an ROI. So they want to increase by a certain amount per year. So if they're paying you a certain amount, they want you to produce a certain amount so that it makes sense. Because ultimately it's run by private equity, meaning that they're mostly looking at the number side, and they want you to produce. And if you're not producing, there's going to be an issue. So it becomes very stressful when you aren't producing, or when you're seeing a lot of patients. When you could do a crown and prep and temp in an hour, normally, they might want you to do it in a half hour or 45 minutes. Because ultimately it's not your decision of, how you schedule your patients, and you kind of have to work around it. Another negative, and sorry for the plane right above me, another negative of being at a DSO is that, and this is what I've seen, is it's not a homey feel. There's a separation between management and the doctors. So if you want a good relationship with the front desk, and you want to make sure that you can run your office the way that you want, and you want to develop the culture the way that you see it, a DSO might not be for you. So if you're a part of a dental service organization, there are opportunities for you to own your business or be a part of it, or be an equity holder in it. Like Pacific does it that way. That's the way that their company is structured. But again, it's built a lot on production and return on investment. So you have to realize when you're joining that team, it's basically due to money. And yes, you have to make money as a dentist, but whether or not you make 10% on your a year or 20% of the year for a private practice, they're not going to kill each other over that. But a DSO, that might not look good for their investors in that organization. Let's talk real quick about private practice. So some pros of private practice are you have the opportunity to structure your work the way that you want. And you have the opportunity to structure the way that you practice. So if you want an hour for crown prep and temp, you can get an hour for crown prep and temp if that's what you're comfortable with. You don't really have anyone overseeing you. And a lot of people who are part of private practice, especially as an associate, are able to talk with the owner, doctor, or even themselves and say, you know what, I'm comfortable doing this. And there's a lot more leeway with all of that. Another advantage is that you build a more personalized relationship with your patients, because normally if you work for a private practice, even if they have two practices, there's a much more intimate relationship between you and the patient. Whereas if you work for a larger company like Dental 365, Aspen, Heartland, they might be able to go to a different dental office and receive treatment, or they might be seeing doctors. So there might be, a lack of continuity of care, which a lot of the times there aren't, but there is a possibility of that. So keep that in mind. Other advantages, like I said before, you can buy your own materials, you can see what you like to do, you can see how you want to operate, you can focus on procedures that you like to do, and you don't have anyone looking over your shoulder saying, hey, you should do that because that's going to make us more money. Obviously, you want to make money as a dentist, but there's less of a stress on, getting a return on that investment and the fact that you have to produce a certain amount. So some negatives of being in a private practice is you don't have sometimes as much patient flow, and you don't have the resources of bringing in patients and having a team market for you. A lot of times the dentist who owns a practice is the one marketing. Another thing is that you have to run the business. When you're not treating patients, you're running the business or you're learning about the business. And you are in constant contact with the front desk to make sure that they're scheduling you the right patients for the right time interval. So there's less structure in private practice normally because you aren't a professional at owning a large corporation where there's systems in place to make it easier for you. Another thing that's a disadvantage of a private practice is you have to pay almost all the bills. So when you're not treating patients, you're writing bills, you're keeping track of your finances. You have to have your own lawyer, accountant. These all cost money. And not only do they cost money, they cost a lot of time too. So if your day ends at 7, you might not leave until 8. Whereas if you're at a DSO, you might leave at 7 o'clock. At the end of the day, it really depends what you like to do and what your mindset is. If you went into dentistry because you want to own your own practice and you want to maybe own 1 or 2 practices and you want to work for yourself and be your own boss, which is a huge advantage of going into private practice, that is for you, because the extra work will pay off in the future. However, a lot of dental students are going the DSO route, which I personally will not go down, because I went into dentistry because I wanted to be my own boss at the end of the day. I think that there is a lot to say about that. And being at a DSO, you're working for someone, and not only you're working for someone, but you have to hit certain requirements for your procedures. You don't have the autonomy to order the materials that you want or the equipment that you want. You don't have the autonomy to create the culture in your office that you want. There is no intimacy between you and the patient that you get in a small private neighborhood private practice. It's like a corporate office. The best way that I could compare it to is going to somewhere like Target or Walmart and a boutique clothing shop. You might know the owner at the boutique clothing shop. You talk to them about your family, your friends, and you feel for each other. At Target, you probably don't know. You probably go to a different cashier every time, and things are not as personalized there, even though they try to make it like that.